Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Hi, thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your host. I have with me today Darren Feller. He is joining us from Wisconsin. He's going to tell us about his high conflict divorce and how he hasn't seen his son since December. So he's in Wisconsin, but the divorce happened outside of Illinois. So Darren, welcome. Thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. Why don't you get us started a little bit about a background of you, your situation, and what's going on with your son?
Sure. I'm originally from the Midwest. I worked in minor league baseball for a number of years. So I've actually worked in 5 state capital cities, which is kind of a trivia question. So I had the opportunity to work in other markets and also work with families, work with kids throughout baseball in their communities. And, I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to be a father. I'm an only child myself. So I took great pride in working with various families just for the betterment of the community and what the family really means. And the people in the communities were great.
So you have a background, you're living in the Midwest, you did travel for work, you get married. Tell us about that.
So I got together with a woman that I actually went to high school with. And thanks to Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, we kind of, our paths came together. Again, I was living in Nashville and she was living in Denver. And we did the long distance relationship and, find out we're having a kid, which was great. And it kind of changes things in your life. And so I made the decision to leave my career in baseball in Nashville. And so I moved to Denver, start a new life. And here we are. And we start raising this child together. And we weren't married yet. And marriage came about 4 years later. We got married in 2015. We had our son in 2011. But just the trials and tribulations that you go through, but yet you want to be working together as co-parents, even though we weren't married. We had this beautiful baby, beautiful little boy. It was about working together. But then, things started unraveling. She's from the Midwest. I mean, we're both from the same town. Then she moves from Denver to the Chicago area. I moved back to Wisconsin. She got a job before me. Now it's like, oh boy, what happens? And so the separation and then the divorce proceedings come, and it came on like a freight train. It came on rather fast, and then things started to happen.
Okay. So you go through the divorce. How did it originally start? Was it amicable, even though you two were not in the same state initially?
So the divorce started in the summer of 2017. And I guess she fired the shots across the bow first. So I get the divorce papers and I'm reading through it, and whoa, it just sticker shocked me, because it was almost like she wanted 100% decision making over everything of our son. And here I'm kind of left out in the cold. She lawyered up first, and then I had to get an attorney, and had that first attorney for a number of years, and it was just going nowhere, absolutely nowhere. So then I had to go the father's rights attorney's route just to get divorced. By that time, she was already on her 3rd attorney. And so here we are battling back and forth. The only objective that I was foreseeing is I wanted to just work for the betterment of our son, co-parent, and just making sure we're both aligned, we're on the same page, that this child is taken care of. Because we have to think about his education, his activities, his medical, his emotional well-being. And so there's different elements that have to come into play. and everything is just getting drawn out, drawn out, drawn out. So then we end up getting divorced. It took 4.5 years. In 2020, January of 22 is when we got divorced.
So during this time where you're going through the divorce proceedings and it's incredibly high conflict, do you have a relationship with your son and do you spend time with him?
Well, that's a great question, because the first part of the divorce, I get mailed copies of the divorce, and I didn't see my son for about 3 months. So they left Denver Memorial Day of 2017. I didn't end up seeing him till almost the end of August of that year. And basically, it was put in front of me, Darren, you need to sign these divorce papers in order to see your son. So then I get my son at the end of August. And of course, tears, everything. I take my son, I basically take him all over Madison because I hadn't seen him in so long. And we're doing activities, Chuck E. Cheese, going out in the field at Camp Randall, just doing everything that a father son should do. And then when I drop him back off, well, that's when reality sets in again, that this could potentially just get worse. And the snowball had already started, but now it's just building up a little momentum.
You see him after several months, you relocate. How was his behavior when you picked him up? Was he excited?
Yeah, he was excited. And then he was just a very energetic little boy. I mean, he's 6 years old at this time. And so he wants to do a lot of activities. And so my she's living in Chicago. Here I'm living in a smaller town, Oregon. So there's a lot more community things going on. And so I incorporate my son. I'm taking him to festivals. We're driving by baseball fields or soccer fields. And so he's taking all that in. And it's like, Dad, can you sign me up for this? Dad, can you sign me up for that? And my answer to him was always, I'll talk to your mom. But then when it came down to it, I got no response.
What was the visitation and parenting time like after that first visit as you move forward with the divorce?
It was every other weekend. And then we started with the vacation time. So we were basically splitting vacation. Now, since I lived in Madison, the parenting plan was written in 2022 with the intention that I would move down to Chicago. And I could have taken a job transfer a couple years ago. And I even asked my son, I told him about this opportunity. He was a little older and he basically advised me, he's like, Dad, I don't want you to move, and was giving me excuses. And I don't, that wasn't my true son's feeling from what I feel. And was he coached? Was he manipulated? I don't know, but that just wasn't a part of his personality. Seeing as who he was as a younger child, and just energetic, outgoing, and like to hang out, like to do things together. And now I could start to see that there's this pullback.
When did it really start going south? Now let's talk about the legal fees and what you endured over this time.
Oh, wow. Well, the first attorney that I had, I spent quite a bit of money with her. And then when I went the father's rights route, that's when things got serious. And Jeffrey Levin Group, it was a $50,000 retainer. And then I hired back, and then so they got me to the finish line. They got me divorced. But then I hired back my first attorney to be a compliance officer, just to see that my ex is following the parenting agreement, and that was going through the roof. So in a whole, I spent over $183,000 on legal bills, taken into consideration as part of my retirement. That's part of my son's college education. I mean, things crumbled a little while and things got tight. Definitely, I had to borrow money that I'm still paying off for legal fees, and that'll probably be for the next 5-7 years.
Let's talk about where we're at today. So you don't move to Chicago. Your son advises you basically it's not a good idea. So what happens then?
So we start having a relationship, and I get him signed up for activities back here. And when my son's with me, I know you've probably heard the term Disney dad. And I'm an active person. I like to be outside, and my son, is active. So we take part in fishing, golfing, hiking. We're doing a lot of different things together. But then also probably 2 years ago, I started seeing him just pull back and not really engaging the way that I thought he would, and that I saw from him in the past. And a good example is that I signed him up for an indoor soccer team, and I couldn't get him on a regular team up here. So he had to play as an independent player. And so years ago, he used to high five these kids and basically knuckles and encourage each other. But then it just came a point in time where there wasn't any of that. And he would just show up on the field and just kind of go through the motions. And he really looked lost, like emotionally. Like if you looked at his face, he didn't look like the same kid from years ago. And then the past year that I've encountered is just these interruptions with parenting time. And the interruptions, it started off with my son basically giving excuses why he didn't want to come to Dad, I got a birthday party. I want to stay back because my friend has a baseball game. I want to stay back because so and so is doing this fun thing, or mom and I have plans. And then my ex started in with the car issues, and there was car problems and this and that. I mean, what is that teaching our son? And that's not teaching them honesty. It's not teaching them problem solving or resolving conflict. It's almost like you're teaching him that, conflict is okay and that you can make excuses and just get away with it.
So divorce was final. You started to spend time with him. And how do we get to today? Where are we legally with what's going on and her not giving you your parenting time?
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, so then I was supposed to get him over Christmas time and this past year. In the agreement, it specifies that if I don't live in close proximity to Glenview, then all of our exchanges take place in Belvedere. And they've been in Belvedere for a long time now. So my ex, I give her a couple options. Like I couldn't take 4 hours of my day to go down there. And our exchanges are supposed to take place in Belvedere. So then I start messaging her and the parenting coordinator, but just asking the parenting coordinator, hey, this is my suggestion. I can pick him up later on Friday night, or we can meet before Christmas. And then it was silence. So then I didn't see my son from the middle of December to all the way first part of March. And I would message each week. I would message the parenting coordinator and my ex. I basically put them on a text thread because it's transparency and what's going on. There was no feedback at all. Just nothing. Silence. I didn't know when I was seeing my son.
So when you finally saw him in March, what was that like?
A little awkward, a little getting to know each other. He definitely changed a couple ways. Well, first way he changed, he's grown like a weed, so he's almost up to my eyeballs now, and he just changing emotionally. And as a teenager, I see that, but then also I don't see really any ambition, any goals, like anything that really piques his interest. And from an interest standpoint, I mean, I'm a former athlete, but like if he would join like some kind of club, or if he engaged in a musical instrument or wanted to draw or play sports, whatever the case may be. But I'm just trying to instill in him that you want to take ownership and make it your own and get better at something. That's all a parent could ask for out of their child. It is, you want to do something and get better at something and make it your own. And
Her request from the parenting plan. Let's talk about that. How ridiculous that is.
I'm sorry, from her request.
Or the you being excluded from school.
Oh, so so I was back in court at the end of March of 2023. I couldn't afford an attorney, so I have to represent myself. By this time, my ex is on her fourth attorney, and we have the parenting coordinator there. And it was an ambush. I literally walked into an ambush. So they instituted 3 orders against me. The first one is I can't have any contact with my son's teachers between now and when he graduates. Now, granted, my son from 4th grade to right now has missed 90 and a half days of school. How is that even possible? And he goes to a private school, and I can't even fathom that. It makes no sense to me. And the parenting coordinator is well aware of this. She has had line of sight on this for years, and she came on board August of 2022. And it's just been an ongoing issue that has never been addressed. But yet the fallout has been that my son is below average math and reading.
Yeah.
My ex is putting him into a private school, Notre Dame College Prep, and he took their entrance exam and he's below average. So, I mean, what trajectory are we putting him on?
Mhm.
Um, and so they instituted that. The second order was I can't have any contact with my son's doctors unless it's an absolute emergency. Now, granted, even when I was in court that day, I had my son's medical records that I'm pulling out, showing the judge and showing counsel, and hey, she's racked up close to $10,000 in medical bills for not treating his asthma. Here's a document that I have that she neglected to take him to the ER when directed by a primary physician. Yeah. And that was number two. And then the third thing they decided to do was in my parenting agreement, it said I could FaceTime my son between 7 and 8 p.m. They revised that to between 3 and 3:30 p.m. So how often am I really talking to my son? Our relationship has fallen, off the map. I tried to call him today and no response. And I texted him and no response. So I don't know what's going on. I can't even begin to guesstimate. I really can't. But that's what happened in court that day. And then to go back and combat that, that's going to push my 183,000 over 200,000 pretty quick.
Let's talk about the parenting coordinator. What value do they add?
Well, everybody kind of misconstrues that as a GAL.
Right.
And she's not a GAL. And we did go down that road of a GAL, and nothing was done there too. It was just money thrown to her. So the parenting coordinator, and that's something that I requested with my attorneys at the time, because I wanted a little insurance policy on this. Whereas I want the parenting coordinator to kind of monitor the behaviors and not be biased, but take it all in and be objective of what's really going on and what is either helping or hindering our son's development. So what she basically is she's a referee. You take an issue that has happened with your ex, you provide her the examples, and then she is supposed to resolve the conflict, bring the conflict down, make a decision for the best interest of the child or children. That's what her role is. With me, I've had to file a complaint against her with the Illinois State Supreme Court, ARDC, I believe. I've had to bring up point after point after point of this is what she's not fulfilling in her role as a parenting coordinator. Therefore, it just keeps the conflict going and emotionally is hurting the child.
Well, who pays her?
My ex and I both paid her, so she was paid $6,000.
You asked for it, she turned against you, and now you're needing to appeal that because she was not the neutral party that you were hoping she would be.
Correct. And the thing is I've even asked her to withdraw from our case. Why are you still involved in our case? And even through the text messaging that she's included on, she's almost thrown in the towel already, because there'll be instances where she'll be like, take it back to court. I'm done. That's it. I'm done. And it's okay. Well, then withdraw from our case and then we can lawyer up and go back and find somebody else. But I don't understand the essence to be in the game. And even for me to go back to court with her still in the position that she's in, I don't really trust her.
Right.
And I think there's an agenda there, and I don't understand why, because this is for the child. And I even made a comment to her when we left the courtroom that day in downtown Cook County. I basically told her, I said, honestly, do not have my ex put that child back in that school. I said, he is behind. He's struggling with the academics. Don't do it. And he's been missing a lot of school. And her answer to me was, we'll see. Yeah, you've had, right now almost 2 years, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Over the years, you've noticed that your relationship with your son is changing. Was there any specific behaviors that you've noticed in him that indicated to you he was being alienated from you?
Yes, on the communication side, definitely, returning calls, returning texts. And those are behaviors that, you and I mean, we're probably around the same age, but years ago, I mean, if the phone rang, we took a message, we gave it to mom and dad or brother and sister. What I'm trying to just have him understand is you want to, I mean, show that you care about people in being respectful and just returning a phone call in a timely manner or returning a text message and just being able to basically communicate. In one incident that I did experience a couple years ago, I surprised him by taking him to Imagine Dragons concert. And at that time, his mom wouldn't allow him to bring his phone with me, but he accidentally had it in his shorts pocket. He gets into my car, and oh my goodness, he thought the world was coming to an end. My ex was blowing up his phone from texting, calling him, and why did you bring that bleeping phone to your father's? You're not supposed to. That child cried from Belvedere all the way into Wisconsin. I had to stop by a convenience store to get him a slushie. And I basically had to tell him, I'm like, you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You did absolutely nothing wrong. But now that child is felt, and he was pretty scared to even go back to mom because of the punishment that he would face, that he brought his phone to dad. It just boggles my mind. To get back to your question about, just the relationship, my son hasn't, he doesn't open up, with me about anything. And our conversations at times are about, I mean, like, how's the weather? How's the weather? Is the grass green? Things like that. I really don't know anything about his life. I know
Yeah.
about a few friends, but I really don't know what his interests are. I don't know if he's got a crush on a girl. I don't know who his favorite band is or his favorite athlete, whoever it is, because he really just keeps everything tight to the vest and he doesn't want to share.
So I'm going to go back a little bit. When she decided to get a divorce and she made it clear that she wanted to have access, control over him, and was there anything that indicated she would behave that way during the marriage?
There were some things that I saw that even when our son, and we weren't even married yet, but our son was just a baby. When you have a child that's a baby, you have to complement each other as parents. You both can't be all up at night. Somebody, you got to have some roles and some responsibilities. And there was a time where I just offered, hey, if you want to sleep, go ahead. You can sleep. I'll take Dalton and we'll drive around Denver DIA airport, and I would make laps till he fell asleep. But then it was like the control started coming in where it's like, no, I'm coming with. You have two people that haven't had any sleep.
Right.
That and I wasn't trying to control. I was just basically, hey, I will take him, get some sleep, whatever. And it just wasn't reciprocal. I almost saw this dominating thing coming out of her that it was like, I have to be in control regardless of the circumstance. And either it was I accept it or, oh my gosh, it's going to be an ugly house. And some nights it was. I mean, it was not pleasant.
When you were still married to her and the household was intact, what was your relationship like with him at that point?
Oh, we would go outside, we played all the time. I mean, we're in Denver. I mean, we're at sunny 300 and maybe 45, 50 days of the year. So we went and did a lot of hiking. He was involved in soccer. He was involved in karate. And he was just a very outgoing kid. And we had this man-made lake. He would take his bike, he would take his scooter and just go around. And now as he's gotten older, it just all that liveliness, that electricity in his eyes, it just seems to be gone. It really does. And and I know he probably felt some sadness moving away from Denver because I mean he was 6 years old, so he's kind of digesting going from Denver to Chicago. Hey, why isn't Dad coming? And then the child has to process. So now it's going to be like every other weekend. So I'm going to be making this drive, and I could see a little bit of that coming out in him as well, where he was bracing himself. Oh my gosh, I got to be in a car for 2 hours. Oh my goodness, it's a lot of time. Wow. But just being out in Denver, I mean, it was great with him. It was great, enjoyable times.
What do you think she has contributed to this relationship unraveling? When we think about alienating parents, they're very strategic in their approach. and you hear the 17 alienating behaviors that are presented by the mother or the father. Are you familiar with those?
I've heard of some of those. Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, if you think back to when this all started to unravel, what were some of the behaviors that she presented with early on that made you realize what was going on?
Well, first of all, I just want to mention something. From parental alienation, I see it from two sides of the coin. I see it from
Mhm.
one side where the physicality of the child
Mhm.
is not okay, it's being kept from one parent or the other. And then the second part of the alienation is the parenting agreement, the co-parenting. Because if you're not on the same page, there's no
Yeah.
co-parenting that's taken. And the child or children, they can see through that. One of the examples I gave is my child wanted to play sports. If I
Mhm.
took him to see a little league game, hey, dad, can you sign me up? Yeah, I'll talk to your mom about that. And it just never happened. And so he basically just stopped asking because he heard no all the time.
Mhm.
Soccer was a sport that he enjoyed as a child, but soccer is the type of game that you got to keep playing in order to
Yeah.
get better if you want to play high school, if you want to play college or what have you. And he hasn't had that opportunity. He's just played school ball. So therefore, he hasn't been able to work toward a common goal to get better. And from, the unraveling part, it basically goes back to co-parenting for the betterment of the child. And even while we were going through the divorce process, even before getting the parenting agreement in place, it's about the child. It's not about me. It's not
Mhm.
about you. It's about us coming together, making sure this kid is okay from a medical, activities standpoint,
Mhm.
education, emotional well-being. That's it. I mean, the marriage is over. We're
Mhm.
not trying to go back there, and we're not trying to, throw stones through glass homes either. We're basically looking at the betterment of the child, and I just never saw that. It was almost like this animosity that
Mhm.
just festered and just kept growing and growing. And I don't understand why. And then the legal system just basically just allows it to happen, and it just continues. And at whose cost? Whose
Mhm.
expense? Yeah, I mean, I spent a ton of money, but there's not enough money in the world to go back at this child, what it's done to him. That's my point.
The child ultimately is the victim, right? I just
Yeah.
think that the courts say in the best interest of the child, but rarely do they put the children first. Rarely. And even if they do, they get it wrong 90% of the time.
I don't understand that, and I have even the lawyers that I went through. It's like, you got to explain this to me, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine a while back. We have gay men and we have gay women, right, that are allowed to get married and have kids, and that's great. I encourage any home, that if you're going to raise a child, that's fine. But then, how does the court then look at gay men that have a child or children, but they get divorced? I would think they would look at them equally.
Mhm.
But then when it comes to a man and a woman, why
Mhm.
is the scale tipping?
Right.
That's the one thing I don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's hard to digest because it should be all about the child
Mhm.
and what their feelings are and what experiences are unfolding around them. Because during their development, they're soaking all this up like a sponge.
But yeah.
They really are.
And then they start to present with the problems that you see in those children: school performance, acting out, fighting, emotional withdrawal, all the things that you're seeing in your son.
I mean, he's going into a new high school next year. Now, granted, it's not going to be that big. It's going to be smaller. It's an all boys school, but are his sports activities probably drying up? Possibly. So now, what are his outlets? That's the $5 million question. I don't know what his interests are. I don't know where he gravitates. I'm sure his friends will change a little bit because they already are right now. And at the eighth grade level, I mean, these boys are talking about, having girlfriends and this, and here's my son. And I'm like, oh, you interested? And then you go,
Mhm.
no, not really. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But I can just get a sense that things are changing around him. And so how is he going to change with that?
You've been fighting this a long time.
It is going on 8 years. And that's, the divorce process and just the continuation after the divorce. Um, I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I thought the end all be all would be with that parenting agreement. But something inside me said it's probably not. And that's why I had to hire my first attorney back to be the compliance officer, just to monitor these behaviors that are starting to spiral out of control. And now it's just the boulders like roll down the hill, and the parenting coordinator just has no control anymore.
And so she violates the parenting plan with zero consequences.
Yep. Yeah, nothing happens. But yet, if I have a business agreement out there and I'm in breach of contract of that, there's legal consequences. Explain that one to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and with our children, I mean, we're developing these kids for the next stages in their life. It's high school and then college, and then it's like, okay, do you want a family? Do you want to start a job and just move into those different stages? And I mean, I want my son to do that, but I'm just seeing some bad patterns developing that it could make the road more difficult as he progressively gets older.
So do you ever speak with your ex-wife?
No, no. We've probably spoken, I would say 3 times in 8 years, and that's
Okay.
just verbally, either on the phone or up in person, but that's it.
Mhm.
And then another avenue is the talking parents. So we've used that, but that's kind of hit and miss. But since everything has been with the parenting coordinator, and
Mhm.
I would advise anybody that has a high conflict situation going on, like myself, is include that parenting coordinator or the GAL. Include them in all the emails or all the text messages, because put it all out there. This is full transparency. And don't do one-offs. Oh, I'm going to talk to
Yeah.
my ex. My ex isn't following this. Oh, I'm going to go to the parenting coordinator. And no, don't do that. Just put it on the table as full transparency, that if you have to take it up to legal counsel or you have to file a complaint, this is what's happening and who's aware of it.
This is incredibly tragic. It's terrible for your son. He is ultimately the victim, but obviously you're his father and you had a great relationship with him. And you want you want to continue to have a great relationship with him, and that doesn't look like it's happening. So what are you doing? How are you handling your heartbreak and your trauma?
Well, I've gotten a few more gray hairs. That's for certain. Thinning a little bit too. Honestly, a good network of friends.
Yeah.
I think that's in family. I'm an only child. My son's an only child, and so I kind of surround myself with family, close knit friends that I talk to on a regular basis. And one good friend of mine, he kind of talked me off the ledge, not doing anything to hurt myself, but it came to a point in time during the divorce process that I was so frustrated, so angry, just everything that you feel going through that. The system wants me out as a dad. I'm
Mhm.
done. I'm done, and I'm just going to sign off and be done with it. And I'd be lying if I didn't think that a few times. But this guy kept me on the straight and narrow and kept my focus on my child. This is what he needs. It's not about you. Go play golf. One of the biggest things is playing golf. Great stress reliever, especially when you hit your ball in the woods. Right? Just take your time and search, under a bush, under a tree, whatever you need to do. Seeing live music.
Mhm.
There's been kids in the neighborhood. I'll drive by, and since I mean we're a community of 10,000 people, there's kids out there playing baseball or
Yeah.
playing basketball, and I'll just stop and talk to them. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And hey, what's new? How's school going? And I just wish that was my son. I
Yeah.
really do. But it gives me something that I can just, even though he's not here with me physically, I can just relate to a child that is just out there and playing a sport or doing an activity, and that's great. That's what it's all.
So when is your next planned visit with him?
It should be, well, after I didn't see him this weekend. I put a suggestion out there. Well,
Mhm.
okay, if your car's not working, let's just switch weekends.
Mhm.
And I haven't heard a reply to
Mhm.
switching weekends, and that's been a common thing that's happened throughout this. Um, but then it would be not next weekend, but the weekend after. So 2 weekends. Yeah. And it's kind of like, as he gets older and, his interests change, I just try to incorporate him in things now as he's getting older that he's
Yeah.
gonna that he's going to learn something, not only about me or whatever, but just about life. An example of that, I took him to see that Christopher Reeve movie. And, I thought, this would be a good opportunity. I mean, when he was younger, that's who I had him watch. He watched Christopher Reeve, and he was my Superman. And just to kind of see his life and just what he did for people, just wearing a blue suit and being a superhero to people. And, um, I like to incorporate him with activities with other people or like other kids, and just trying to get him, there was, getting back to behaviors. Was it last fall? He was at my house and he wanted to play soccer. And I said, yeah, I can play soccer with you, but I said, you could get more out of soccer if we go find a pickup game.
Mm-hmm.
And you just jump in and you just play, and you're going to learn more than Dad and you and I doing these one-on-one drills. And we found a group of kids. They were freshmen in high school, and they were doing some practice drills. And Dalton didn't really want to get out there and engage himself. So I went out there and introduced Dalton to the kids, and they welcomed him in, and that was so great because he got to be out there just learning from these guys. They're a little older, and he kind of had his hands in his pockets, and but I mean, those are the type of things that that if he likes it, just go for it.
Yeah.
Just jump in.
Well, Darren, thank you for joining the Fractured Families podcast and for sharing your story with us. Do you have any final thoughts?
The biggest thing that I would tell people that are going through this is it's about your kids. Check your swords, check your egos at the door. And it's about the kid. Now, if there's behaviors that are coming out in either parent that are negatively impacting the child, then they need to be brought to the surface. Just focus on the child, focus on their development, and making sure they're going on the right path of life.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real, and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.